I stopped letting fear make the decision for me and my truth make the decision. And the moment that I gave my notice, a month after, I had actually ended up tripling my income from leaving corporate, which was like, oh my God, they're a gift from the universe, from God, source, whatever that is for anybody listening.
Welcome to the Anniston Riekstins Show. This space is created for the woman coming home to her voice, her power, her way. For the woman remembering who she really is, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the world's expectations. I'm Anniston, transformational guide, spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and creator, here to walk beside you, to share stories, wisdom, and energy that guide you back home. Here, we lead from the inside out. We create from overflow, not hustle. We rise not by becoming someone else, but by remembering who we've always been. This isn't just a podcast. It's a homecoming. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. I am so excited that you're here today. I have a really special guest on the pod that I'm excited to share with you. Her name is Laura Grabavoy. And Laura spent 3 decades climbing the ranks of corporate banking, vice president, senior private banker, top 1% sales achiever. And by every external measure, she had made it. And yet, she knew something was missing, not in her career, but in herself. Laura is a woman's empowerment coach, a former ultra high net worth banking executive, and someone who understands viscerally what it costs a woman to stay in rooms that were never built for her wholeness. In this conversation, Laura and I go really deep on the moment she realized that she had been betraying herself, what healing actually looks like when you're still performing success on the outside, and the topic I love talking about, money as feminine energy, why so many women are in a war with abundance, and how healing your money story changes everything. This one is for the woman who is accomplished and exhausted, who has built a beautiful life that somehow still doesn't feel like hers. Sister, you were never the problem, and Laura is living proof. So let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome back to the Anniston Riekstins Show. I am so excited that you are tuning in. We have an incredibly amazing, soulful, just beautiful heart here with us today, Laura. I'm so excited that you're joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, as you've just heard, Laura and I actually were introduced not too long ago, but you made such an impression on me. And one of the things I love about you, Laura, and I'm sure you probably get this a lot, is your energy is very calming. Have you always been this way?
Yeah, it's just who I am. I'm very grounded. And it's gotten even better. It's gotten even more grounded for me just because of the work that I do. But yes, I love that you share that.
Well, I always think like how we make people feel is truly our greatest gift.
Mm,
And I think it's important that we tell people like
mm.
how other people make you feel, because I think the more that we become aware of what our energetic gifts are, the stronger they get within ourselves, and then thus the stronger our impact gets. So I'm happy to share that with you. And
Thank
I
you.
always love to spend time in your space. So this was very selfish for me as well, having you here and being able to share you with this community that is just filled with the most incredible women. So if it's okay with you, I would love to just like dive right in today. I have a lot of ideas of things I would like to ask you, but we're just going to let this flow.
Yes.
So can you take us back to the moment in your own life when you realized you had been betraying yourself? What was happening and
Oh,
what did that feel like in your body? Because I know most women have that moment.
it's so interesting. You say that word and I want to cry. Wow. Thank you for that. That's beautiful because I do remember that time. I think about like the most impactful time was I was sitting on my couch probably about 6 years ago. And I had been feeling a lot of things in my life. I'd built a beautiful life. I grew up in a home with a lot of instability and like emotional chaos as a child, as a teenager. There were moments of trauma in my childhood that I don't share publicly. And it's not because I want to hide anything, but it's what I realized is that on the couch, I had a really big transformation that as I look back at it today that I did not realize how I was betraying myself, and I was looking outside of myself to feel better. And at the time, I felt very justified by it. I wanted to feel better. I felt really hurt by the people that I had grown up with, my family, especially around this trauma that I've had growing up. And I remember being on a podcast, and the woman at the time, I was listening to her series around releasing resistance to what you want. And she had been sharing about the emotional guidance scale. And this is where my question came up with, I do a lot of work around the law of attraction and, believing that your energy is what you attract to you. But I didn't realize the emotional piece of it at the time. I didn't realize how I was trying to get over the situation that was happening in my life. And I was betraying myself that way, trying to get
Mhm.
over it. And the emotional guidance scale was a really big wake up moment for me because I was like, man, I felt so sad. I felt so hurt. But I was like, I was trying to get over it because I'm like, my God, I had such a beautiful life. Like I'd done so much in my life. One of the things that I'm most proud of is as I share my story around trauma, I sat on the couch at 16 years old with my mom and I shared with her what was happening. And then what that did is I was on my own at 16. And so I was so proud of like the life that I'd built, even though I'd had this stuff in my past. And so when I was on the couch at 46 or whatever, 6 years ago, I remember thinking, man, stop. Just get over this. Get over your past. Like, stop. But the thing that I realized is that you don't get over it. You get to heal it. And so that was a really big moment for me. And that emotional guidance scale was a thing that I was like, wow, how do I heal this? How do I stop feeling so sad and so hurt? And so what this woman had shared with me on this podcast was you're looking outside of yourself and look within, and that I had the ability to choose how I wanted to feel. And I remember, like, at the time, I was like, I knew there was something really powerful about it. And I knew in my soul that this was the answer, but I didn't know the how of it. That was the journey that I went on, that I've been on for 6 years. But I love the way
Mhm.
that you asked that question because it was a way that I didn't realize that I was betraying
Betraying.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, when you were just sharing this and the similarities and the connection between the couch, right? Something came forward for me, which I don't think I had put two and I mean, I had put two and two together for me, but to hear it from your point of view is interesting. I also had sexual trauma when I was the day before my 16th birthday. And I remember hiding it and, like, literally, like, crying the next day, like, on the bathroom floor. And then fast forward, I don't know, 25 years, I was in a hotel bathroom on the floor crying because I had chronic UTIs and couldn't figure
Um,
out why. And I always thought it was interesting that it's, like, became full circle, you know what I mean? And it's like
yeah.
and I do believe that more and more of the spiral and that we spiral through and we spiral back, and then we spiral out, and then we spiral back, and every time we spiral back, I feel like we get this opportunity, like, when we descend within ourselves to heal and to integrate, but that opportunity has to be accepted. And so talk to me about that. So you had this awareness. What did you do next?
Yeah, it was such a beautiful time for me on, sitting on the couch because, like I shared with you, I had built like this beautiful life. I had 3 adult kids on like the home, the car, the job, the VP roles in corporate. And what was so interesting is that inside, I still carried a lot of the story of the trauma.
Mhm,
And looking back at it today and the work that I've done, my identity was all around the story. And
mhm.
so what was so interesting is I love Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Me
I love
too.
him. He's on my board of directors. He's my spiritual father, and I love his story. He's
He
helped
was
me.
my gateway into
Oh
spirituality.
my
I
god,
saw him on a PBS show when
no
I was
way.
in my, like, early 20s. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just heard his voice and it stopped me, and I've never been the same since.
Yes, yes, and he has a quote, "Change the way you look at things, and the way you look at things will change."
Yes.
And so for a long time, I had looked at my story from, and I didn't know it at the time, this has been revealed to me as I've been doing this work, but from a victim place. And I never wanted to be a victim of my story. I was like, I'm a survivor. And then it was like, I had all these identities around this. And so his quote to me was, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. And so, what's so beautiful about this is I'm writing a book today, and I've been writing this book for a while. And I know that this writing has been so healing for me, but I wanted to go back and write from an empowered place from the scar. And what
Mhm.
I noticed is that I was shaming this victim part, I was ignoring.
Mhm.
And so when I went back to her and lovingly gave her the space and lovingly allowed her to just say what she needed to say and really heal that part, is where healing really happened. So it was this inward journey for me. And the
Mhm.
inward was allowing myself to connect with these beautiful spaces and memories. And it was through writing. The one thing that I changed was really pouring into myself and having sacred time for me in the morning throughout my day. But it was really like in the morning time, journaling and just really just going within. And what was so interesting is that when I was able to heal this part of me, I started to see my story change. And this is where Choose You Anyways comes from. So
Mhm.
I shared with you earlier around the movement of Choose You Anyways that I've started. And it's the book that I'm writing. And it came from seeing how I chose myself on the couch
Yeah.
with my mom in that moment. And then I chose myself too at 16 because I was on my own. I was being bounced around from home to home and I was homeless at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my mom, I was like, I need you to sign me over as a ward of the state. And I chose myself in that moment. That empowerment was there. But it just it changed my life. It changed my life to go within, to look within at the stories that were there, and I didn't wanna be defined by this trauma. I didn't wanna have the identity. I wanted to honor it. I
Yeah.
wanted to have space for it, but not it be my identity going forward.
I really do. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And I remember for me, it felt like a major undertaking to me. It felt like heading off into an unknown territory that I didn't know what I was going to find. But what I've come to understand is it's really just a process of re-seeing.
Yeah.
It's a process of reclamation. It's reclaiming, it's accepting and loving yourself through it and loving those experiences back into light. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that there's so many different ways that you can go around it. I don't believe there is just one way, but it is so important, I think, as women especially, that we share our way
Yeah.
because oftentimes that's how I don't know about you, but it was on the heels of other women sharing their way that I just happened to find that resonated with me, that gave me some form of a structure or process to follow.
Yeah.
And because we do need that in some
Yeah.
ways, especially when we're doing something for the first time until you can create your own process. So I would love to shift directions just a little bit and talk a little bit more about, you are an extremely successful woman who has been very successful in the professional corporate sphere.
Yeah.
And yet, you're a woman who has profound spiritual gifts, who has now left, correct?
Yeah.
And is doing your own thing. So, I want to, if you don't mind, kind of share your story of how that came about. And with the hope of that anyone listening to this who is finding themselves feeling the call, like it's time, but they're fearing, right? They're making this decision feel very big. So, hopefully, we
Yes.
can demystify it for them.
Hey, sis, if you've done all the things, journaled, meditated, manifested, but something still feels off, it might be time to stop chasing and start magnetizing. The Magnetic Woman Facebook group is a free space where you'll learn the real tools to shift your frequency, align with your purpose, and attract from your feminine power. It's not just information, it's embodiment. And you'll be surrounded by conscious, like minded women who are walking this path right beside you. Come join us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes. I'll see you in there.
Yeah, I've been in corporate for 30 years in VP roles. I'd actually manifested the job that I left through the work that I'd been doing. It was so fun because I had like 3 jobs show up at the same time that I always wanted. And because of the work that I'd been doing, it was like powerfully calling this in. And so I had this VP role in private wealth management and I loved working with my clients. However, I felt like the corporate environment around me, I could see and feel so much in people around me. And what do I mean by that? It was like they were working from the neck up, right?
Yes.
And so it was a very masculine environment. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. I just say that there was like an unhealthy masculine that was in the corporate environment
Mhm.
that I could see. But however, I did so much work within myself to, this is where I believe like going within and even in that environment to not allow myself to shrink to whatever was happening around me that I defined how I wanted to show up. And I had so much success around it. And I had so many people that would come to me for advice. And then at the same time, I was writing my book. I worked with another woman and I was doing some coaching as well and speaking. And what I found is that I just had just this my calling was to do what I'm doing today. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, well, how am I going to let this go? And I remember I was walking on a beach one day, and this was actually in July. And because of the work that I do with women and the space that I hold, I know that I help them to come to their own, I coach majority women, but men as well, but help them come to their own truth inside of themselves. And I remember feeling this calling on my heart that I needed to do this full time. And what was so interesting is that I knew that I needed to step away.
Mhm.
And I didn't have to know. I remember walking on the beach at the time, just like throwing all these like limiting beliefs, I call them, like all these reasons why I couldn't do it. But I just had such a strong calling on my heart. And I knew that it was time. I had this knowing inside of me. And what I did is I really looked within myself and the strength. I go back to like even my story of when I was younger. And I think about the strength within myself and knowing that the way that I had led my own life and how I trusted myself and my intuition,
Mhm.
that I knew that it was time. I just had a knowing within me. And I decided that it was time. It was a decision that I had made. And at the same time, knowing I'd seen in my life how I had been supported spiritually around
Mhm.
me and that I'd always been taken care of and I'd always been given the answers and the things that I needed in order to move forward. And so I stopped letting fear make the decision for me and my truth make the decision. And the moment that I gave my notice, a month after, I had actually ended up tripling my income from leaving corporate, which was like, oh my God, like they're a gift from the universe, from God, source, whatever that is for anybody listening. It was just like this beautiful space that was held for me with it.
Mhm.
But I probably could share more, but yes.
Well, I love so much about what you said, and I think a couple things. Similarly to you, I think when people say, "Okay, well, I really wanna do this, but I'm gonna have to leave in order to do it," I always argue, like, you gotta start being it, right? If you
Yes,
had
yes,
started being it
yes.
before in my corporate position prior to this, also senior VP, I had made a commitment to myself. I was like, "I'm gonna show up as me." And I started writing a book. I started, you know what I mean? And there was, of course, that fear. What if they find out? What if they create a story that I'm not working when everyone else is working hard? It just didn't happen. And I think that energetically, like you have to start leaning into that identity because I think what happens is people will leave, they haven't yet expanded into this identity of this coach or healer or author or whatever that thing is for you at all. And so, of course, it's out of your comfort zone. So, of course, you're not seeing it externally reflected back, right? So, you had already started leaning in
Yes,
and
yes.
creating in that way. And thus having reflected back your own purpose and value and the impact that you're creating other people, which is like fuel for that identity.
Yes.
So I did want to bring that up. The other thing is that this idea that our having a W-2 or a secure company that is the less risky move. We talk about risk, right?
Yes,
I mean, you were
yes,
dealing in wealth management and probably a lot of risk,
yes,
right?
yes,
But talk about risk to me because I think we talk about risk as it relates to numbers that don't have any meaning except for what we give it.
exactly.
But what about the risk of not fulfilling what you came here to do?
And I love this question so much because my identity was around like this corporate paycheck. It was
Yeah.
like all the things that were there. And even, yeah, I think about like you shared, and I love how you shared this because it was an identity that I stepped into as a powerful speaker, coach, book writer, even in corporate. But I was like, man, there was so much I was actually not allowing more money to come in to me. It wasn't able to come in because my energy was in the corporate environment and what I was doing because I cared and I gave my heart to clients and what I did. And I also cared about the clients that I was serving as a coach and I cared
Mhm.
about the message that I had to share. But my energy at the time was it was a lot to hold. And I thought at the time, even on the beach, I was like, I knew I needed to release this because it was taking so much of my energy.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was leaving money on the table as well.
Mhm.
And which is fun because when I stepped out and seeing what flowed in, I was like, oh my God, wow. It was right there. It was the evidence that the gift that I was given to see
Yeah.
that I would always be taken care of. And I've done a lot of so, yeah, the risk of it was I was leaving so much on the table.
And I think it is one of actually the most secure things you can do is to pursue what lights your soul on fire and what you're here to do because you know that that is going to be an expansive energy that is going to lead to fulfillment, which is really what we want anyway, right?
Yes.
So now you currently work with women, correct? So when you're working with women, where do you feel like the most important place to start is?
Yeah, it's inward, it's with pressure.
Okay.
So, I had held so much pressure with inside of myself around my emotions, around the things that I didn't know how to heal, pressure within the corporate environment, the work that I'd done within myself in order to really feel free, to be myself, to be authentic. I love to hold that space for women to really just be authentic, to feel free, to feel at
Mhm.
peace, to make a good amount of money, to trust themselves. And so the work that I've done on myself and the way that I even invest in myself with coaching and I want to inspire women to have the courage to do what lights them up, to do what
Mhm.
they're passionate about. I think about like even in the corporate space, I held this space
Yeah.
myself, even like making my own rules. And I was the number one performer. And I wasn't, and because of the work that I've been doing on myself, it wasn't because of the pressure or it was, I sold the way that it was authentic. I brought in some, I call feminine energy around intuition and play. And so, I love to hold this space for women, like, that are high performers, that either are running their own business or in corporate, to see that they can do things a different way and do it their way and trust themselves is so
Mhm.
important.
Mhm. And I know that you're something that is near and dear to your heart is the wealth, like the feminine wealth frequency.
Yes.
And so where do you feel like most women get this wrong?
I could go into this, but it's a frequency. It's a frequency with inside of themselves. Working in this space I saw so many women shrink around money. If I think about this, like women were not allowed to have their own credit cards until like the 70s.
I know. This is a new frontier for us as women. We kinda need to give ourselves a little grace, I think, because, I mean, our
Yes,
mothers, that was our mothers.
I know. And so women didn't feel like they shrunk a lot. And
Yeah.
so I love to help women feel empowered around money. And everybody has their own money beliefs. And so I love to expand those beliefs. I love to help take away any shame or guilt around
Mm,
money. And
mhm.
I've been in banking for 30 years, and the banking system is set up to protect the banking system, right?
Yeah.
There are rules in place around credit, around all the things. And so what I do is I help women to see that it's just one way that money works. There's so many different ways that money works. And so I love to demystify things. I love to help them lean into their own, like, what do they want to create with money? How do they want to use money? And help
Mm,
them expand their relationship around money. And I worked in this space for so long. And one of my biggest healings was around my relationship with money, because what I learned is that my relationship with money mirrored the relationships that I'd had in my past with my mom and my
mhm.
dad and my family. And so I'd put, you know, a lot of this into money. And so I'd done a lot of healing around this. That's why I know this internal work that we do even heals our relationship with money. And
Mhm.
money is a tool, and that's all it is. I made it
Yeah,
so much bigger. So I love to demystify that for women, especially because of all that I'd seen. And what I love too, the gifts that I have is I could feel people's energy around money.
you
I
can.
can automatically feel that. And I can feel when they're expansive, when there's scarcity. And I love to really lean into that more expansive and helping people release that scarcity that's there
Yeah.
because of whatever story they've been told or whatever story they tell themselves. And so there's so much beautiful healing that can happen around money.
I agree. I was thinking about it. I actually think the 2 areas in our life that I believe are the most stigmatized or people have the most trauma or I would say distorted belief around and wounding is money and sex.
Mm,
And how interesting, I mean, and I know it from studying the divine feminine, both of those are very much associated with our sacral chakra, which is
mhm.
also simultaneously tied to our creativity.
Yes.
And so creativity, sexuality, our money store, all of that. Oh, I'm all tingly right now. So
Me
we've
too.
definitely we've hit a nerve. So I just want to sit here for a minute because I think we're just flowing with this, ladies. We're just flowing with this. And I just think it's so interesting how that has been also simultaneously a measure of control. How do
Yes.
you control the people? You create a lot of fear around those things
Yes.
because the minute like sisters. Let me just tell you this, like, and I know you agree with me on this, Laura. Like, the
Yes.
minute you start to tap into the power we have access to when you heal the story you have around money and around your sexuality and all of the stigmas around that, and you are now allowing yourself to release that creative energy that there really is no cap. And I actually think women were designed to create wealth
Yes.
more so
Yes.
than men.
Yes.
So talk to me about that. What do you know about that?
No, because, one of the things in working in the industry, it was like the banks are trying to figure out how to like market to more women
Yeah.
because more women are coming into wealth. And you're
Yes.
seeing this transfer of wealth to more women. And this is where I feel so passionate about this because recently coaching women around money, a lot of them think that they don't understand money. And I help them remember the power
Mhm.
that they do understand money, the stories that they tell themselves.
Yeah.
I think about they don't have examples of or they're looking at, like, people in power that have money and thinking that if I had money and if I had this power, that I'm gonna be that same person.
Yes.
And I'm like, "That is not true. That is a lie you're telling yourself." If
Mhm.
you think about who you are as a woman and
Mhm.
the impact that you can make, and even greater impact that you can have with money that's there for you. And who would you be? And
Mhm.
remember who you are and the gift and whatever you're creating in your life that this allows you to be able to impact at a greater scale.
Mhm.
And so I love this topic. and really helping empower, like you said, yes, the creativity. And, I think about, oh my goodness, there have been women recently, I think Jeff Bezos and his
Mhm.
wife, the separation there. But I think about like the impact that she's had with money
Yeah.
and the way that she's given it to different charities
Yes.
and her heart around it. I love her heart around it. And she wanted to create great impact with this wealth that had been given to her. And how many more women out there, yeah, I think, like looking for examples like that, but even making our own stories around this, like the
Yes.
impact that you can have and the way that money gets to support
Mhm.
this as well. I think it's really powerful.
It's really interesting, and I know we all have our own because I study numerology and astrology. I don't know if you're familiar with, like, astrology at all. Do you follow
Mhm.
astrology? Okay, so my Chiron, which is the wounded healer, which is points to in your chart where your greatest wounding is. Well, mine is
Mm,
in Taurus, and it's in the 12th house, which is psychological, and so my specific wounding is not feeling security from within, like, feeling unsafe, and
mm,
this projects largely on money.
mm,
What's interesting though is over my life, I have managed to be quite abundant. There's always been enough. However, certain periods, and it's even been activated for me in the last few weeks, like in big ways, which just tells me that I'm integrating and I'm releasing this on a deeper level. But it's like I can look at my life and have no reason to feel fear, but I do.
mm,
And so if someone is listening to this and they're thinking like, okay, wow, I'm in a tough spot with money, or I've had a horrible money story, or money in me of, like what is one thing you could tell them to do to start to shift that? You know what I mean? Even
ooh,
if it's just one little action or one little perspective shift.
yeah. And actually, I did this. There is a book out there. I don't know if you've read it. It's called Get Rich, Lucky Pitch. So, like the title, I was like, all right, I'm all for this. Like, let's read
Yeah.
this. But there was a really powerful exercise that I loved. She had me go through and think about all the ways and any areas that I had shame around money, any
Yes.
situations. So, in order to be able to release them, you have to look at them. And you don't have to, you get to, right? But just to look at them and really what it did is I noticed how I was giving my power away with situations that if, I got to heal that part that was there around money, the shame or whatever was there. I remember like I would get gifts from people and I'd be like, "Oh, I can't have this for myself. I'll regift them." I was like, "Why? Why am I doing that?"
Hmm.
It was like I get to receive these things, little things like special candles. I wouldn't burn them. That's money. That's abundance thinking mindset there. And I was like, wow, like I get to enjoy this. And this is a feminine frequency that's there, like that I was really stepping into. But I looked back at the ways that there was shame or whatever there was around money.
Yeah.
And then I did this simple little healing prayer, which is a Ho'oponopono prayer, which I love. You love
Yes. Ho'oponopono. Yes.
Ho'oponopono, yes, which is like, "Please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, I love you." And just around, each thing that I wrote out, and then what I did is I released it, and then I went back and I powerfully rewrote what I wanted
Hmm.
with it. So, to keep it simple, it was like, "You know what? I'm going to burn the candles that I have." Like,
Yeah.
the luxury things that are here, and it's all about, like, releasing any kind of shame or guilt that was there. And
Mhm.
then what was really powerful is she talked about seeing like abundance and wealth around you. And I remember, like it's in many different forms. I remember a woman that I coached. We were sitting out on the porch one time. We were talking about money and how money is all around us. And somebody had bought her a coffee that day. And I was like, look at how abundant you are. I was
Mhm.
like, "That cup of coffee was $6 that
Yeah.
was just gifted to you." Like, finding there's money and wealth all around us, so when we can heal and a lot of these stories or the shame around money, we're
Mhm.
opened up to seeing the abundance and wealth in many ways around us, and so I often tell women to start there, to Start with what is it around money where there's fear or shame, and what are
Mhm.
the stories, and you get to rewrite those stories around it. Yeah.
That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I should go back and do this again. I'm a big proponent of the Ho'oponopono prayer. I mean,
Yeah.
oftentimes if I'll be like in my head just reciting it, like, okay, but it's the one of the quickest ways I know to really clear the energy, clean the energy, and to move forward. And I was also sitting here thinking about, I think for me, it was starting to refer to money as a she instead of a he, because money is a feminine energy. And it's meant to flow and circulate like water. Water can teach us everything we need to know about the flow of money. It needs to
Yes.
flow, right? It needs to flow. And the minute it becomes stagnant, it becomes toxic. You know what I mean? Like it needs to be blessed. And when you
Yes.
bless money, it changes the frequency, just as when you bless water, it changes the frequency. So
Yes.
I think there's just so many ways that we can shift our perspective. But I am so grateful to have someone like you in my life, and I'm so
Aw.
grateful that you were brave enough to step out of the known and into the unknown, because I know you're gonna help so many women heal around this. I can
Yeah,
feel it. I
that's
know it. And you also have, I'm sure if I looked at your chart, which I haven't obviously yet, but you would have some of the aspects that lean into and speak into wealth frequency, because I can feel it from you.
yeah.
So, I just want anyone listening to this that is like, their heart is resonating out of their chest right now, and they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I need more of this." Like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. Like, how can they find you? How can they work with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn or Instagram, just my name, Laura Grabavoy.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd love to just connect. I love to help women in particular shift their energy around wealth and to heal it, to expand around it.
Yeah.
And I love what you shared around it's a feminine frequency and it's the masculine too. It's so important. Like
Yes.
we've had such a beautiful masculine container around money
Yes.
that we get to bring in the feminine frequency around
And
money as
balance it.
well, like you shared, and so it's just energy, it's not like male or female, as you
Mm-mm.
know, your audience is probably very aware of it,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of misnomers around, this like, I honor the masculine and the feminine
Yes.
in money because it's so beautiful, and when you can have that balanced in your life, so many beautiful things happen for you, for the people around you, and the impact that you can have is very special and
It's
powerful.
interesting too with, like, where we are right now in 2026 and, we had all this big movements with Saturn and Neptune. Well, Saturn, Lady Saturn, also feminine, is about structure.
Mm,
Feminine structure. And so it just speaks into, I think this year, you need a container for it to flow into,
mm,
right? So just to further validate what you're saying, us demonizing the masculine isn't productive, right?
yeah,
It's about balance, it's about integration, it's about creating a really stable, strong structure. Well, first and foremost, being yourself, and
yes,
then creating structures, whether it be a program or things that are actually physical for this money to flow, for you to be blessed through,
yeah,
and then for other people to be blessed through. And so it's definitely a balance. So I love that you approach it that way and teach that way as well. So thank you again, Laura, for coming on. I could talk to you for hours,
I
like,
know.
truly. I'm looking at the time, I'm like, "How did that happen?"
Oh, you're
Uh,
such a beautiful soul. I love the work that you do too. I was so happy to connect and
yeah.
get to know you better, and thank you for having me today, and I love who you are and what you bring to the world as well.
Thank you so much, Laura. All right. Well, sisters, I see you, I love you, and thank you for joining this episode, and I'll catch you on next week's episode.
Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to pass it along to another woman who might need these words today. And if you feel called, it would mean so much if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast. It's one of the best ways to support this work and help these messages reach more women who are ready to remember who they are. And if you'd like to stay connected or share what's landing for you, come find me over on Instagram. I'd love to meet you there. Until next time, keep trusting your rhythm, keep honoring your voice, and keep becoming the woman you were always meant to be.